We're here to talk about, is the UK okay? Now, I have faith in people from the UK. I've got two very fine men here, the patriotic Christian, and of course the legend, the Thunderous from the UK. One. And yeah, I think these guys are willing to speak up. They're willing to stand up. They're willing to organize. They're willing to say what needs to be said. And with people like that, the UK is going to be okay. But I do think it's going to be a fight. And things are a bit bleak right now. So we'll start with you, the patriotic Christian. Rowan, how are you doing? Welcome back.
Yeah, not so bad, not so bad. Been very busy. So a lot of activism. So I said going back to the end of last year, 2025 was the year of awakening. It was when Britain needed to wake up and to see what is actually going on in the establishment and outside of the establishment and how bad it has actually got. 2026 is the year for action. This is where we need to topple this government and ask for change. We need change, not in 2029, not in the next general election, but now. So that's where I stand. So I've been busy. I've been out.
Well, we'll talk about that some more because I think that'll be very interesting. And Thunderous, how are you doing?
Hi guys. Hi Rowan. Hi Lloyd. And hi to everybody in the chat. I'm glad to be with you guys. Our first show of 2026, and looking forward to what's going to happen this year. I personally feel I think this is going to be a year where a lot of things are going to happen. I think last year and the year before possibly were slightly escalating incrementally from one year to another, but I think this year we're going to see a big jump, a big leap forward in some kind of direction. That's how I feel about 2026.
Right. You know what? I think everyone is starting to see the problem. It's almost like it had to get really bad for people to notice, to properly notice, right? And now that they're seeing it, sure, it might be a fight to get back to normal, whatever normal happens to be. But I think people are realizing, look, this needs to change. Yeah, Noel Benstead says the country is a mess. Thank you, Noel. Yes, you do need a new Cromwell. Yeah, you need good leadership. I mean, I'm not sure if Cromwell is the best example, but you do need strong leadership. You do need strong Christian leadership. You do need to stand against Islam. Yeah, you need a new Churchill for sure. Yeah. And Sergeant, thank you, Sergeant Grinch. He says, "May God continue to bless this channel." Yeah, this week's going to be a busy week of talk. Thank you, Thunderous. You were going to say?
Yeah, I think a good litmus test, a barometer when you're reading comments, as I have been doing over the past few years, is when you start seeing people who don't have a faith in an intelligent designer starting to say there's something wrong with the world, or you're finding a consistent pattern of people saying basically the same thing of other religions as well, saying there's something wrong with the world, there's something not quite right. When you're finding so many people of a different worldview coming to the same conclusion, not just about what's taking place in England, but what's taking place in America, what's taking place in Europe, what's taking place in Australia, what's taking place in the Middle East, what's taking place in Ukraine. There's a pattern between all these things that's taking place. And another pattern is the response. Because fundamentally, as human beings, whether the atheist or the Hindu or the Sikh wants to recognize it or not, Genesis 1:26 says that we're made in God's image. So we reflect God's qualities. Okay, that's our worldview between the three of us. So it's only natural for us to look at things that are wrong and respond to that, because we're reflecting God's qualities when we do so. Other people, they may not accept that, but they are responding in the context of there's something not quite right with the way the world is.
Yeah, and it's a good thing we're not made in Allah's image, because then you'd have two right hands and you'd have one shin and a vagina clinging to your thigh.
And 99 different names.
Yeah, that can get a little confusing. So
he's got sort of like Jay-Z problems. He's got 99 names, but Jehovah isn't one, or Yahweh isn't one.
That's it. Adonai isn't one.
Yeah. Noel Benstead says the king is a traitor and the entire elites are Islamophile, idiot or cowardly. Maybe Cromwell isn't the best example, but as you recognize, the entire government is rotten. Yeah, you know what? Let me show something with King Charles.
They're not the real royals anyway, by blood.
They are.
But that's
Actually, you
it.
know what? They actually are, because there was lots of cross marriage. This is normal within the history of royals. So Katie Bog Katie says, greetings from Canada, watching the UK with great sadness and concern. The Church of England has fallen. Yes, it has. Yes, it's a surprise stream. Sorry, guys. I should have advertised this earlier, but I was running late. The UK. You know what? I think the UK can come back from this. Spain had its Reconquista. The UK can have its Reconquista as well. And
We have
I think
to be quick, though. This is the important thing, though, Lloyd, because we are literally on borrowed time as it is. And the problem with our side, if you like, on the right or the centre right, it is becoming more of a divided place right now. And I would say it's beginning to get very messy. Let's just put it that way. So action is needed.
Yeah. We need to see that. Remember, I've shown photos before of King Charles doing. Here we go. Let's have a look. Just a couple. So King Charles is a member of a Sufi order under Frithjof Schön, some sort of tariqa, and Sufis are Muslims.
Yeah.
But it's a Muslim order, so he belongs to this order. Does that make him a Muslim? Well, in theory, yes. And of course, you see he's got an affinity. And then, of course, there's several photos of him doing little things like this, which is of concern. And of course, he allowed recently in Westminster Cathedral, he allowed the adhan to be said, and for a Muslim imam to recite the prayers, which means that they deconsecrated the church and they effectively turned it into a mosque.
Yeah, there was a mufti as well that said that if he was to reveal the things that he knew about our so-called king, that Britain would fall on its knees in despair. Whether that was just to wind us up or not, but the guy was he looked genuine. He was a Saudi guy, but he did say, like, there's stuff I know about your king in regards to Islam, and let's just put it this way: if Britain was to find out some of the things I knew, and I was to reveal those things that I've witnessed, you would the people of Britain would fall down in despair. And I genuinely believed. I can't remember which video. I'll have to get that and send it to you, because it's quite scary to see.
Yeah, because I believe he celebrated Eid in the cathedral, but didn't celebrate Christmas, was it?
Yeah, they were. Wasn't it him and the Queen, his wife, former lover? They were packing up dates for the breaking of fast, weren't they? Is iftihar, whatever they call it. So this has also been an incremental move on Charles's part. This is not some kind of recent relationship he's got with Islam. From what I can recall incidences between Islam and Charles going back about 25 years. All that's happened is, with a lot of things going on in the world, the presence of Islam and its manifestation in more of an open plain view has just incrementally increased. So it started off slow in the past, but it's making greater steps as we come to the period of time that we're in now.
Yeah, you've got Muslims embedded in the civil service, which means that they're making decisions. And if Starmer steps down now because of the Mandelson/Epstein scandal, then of course you may have President, or Prime Minister Shabana Mahmood. Isn't that an exciting thought?
She's I think second in the polls at the moment. In the bookies, I think she is polling second. But I don't think Starmer will back down just yet. I think we'll probably latch on till May. But we'll see. We will see. He is treading on eggshells, so to speak. So anything can happen right now.
I personally see that these things, particularly with the Mandelson and Epstein relationship, as being somewhat controlled, because when he was appointed ambassador to America, forgive me if that's not the correct role that he was given, the relationship was already known. It wasn't a secret. Mm-hmm. It's only something that's being played with now. I mean, the Conservatives knew, the media knew, this is not something new. This is something that goes back years. It was known when the appointment was made, nothing was said. This is just a byproduct of the Epstein files as they've manifest now in the media, were released in what I would say is controlled damage control. So I don't see this as having the impact that people may think it would. I see this as very much the same way as when, Yasser Qadi made the comments about the holes in the narrative. And I think a lot of people were expecting a big avalanche of people becoming ex-Muslim and leaving Islam because the narrative wasn't true in light of the facts. But I said on the Gin and Tonic show, and you may recall, Lloyd, that I said that this won't have any effect on Islam. Maybe 1% it'll have an effect on, but they were probably going to leave Islam anyway. All that did was just confirm the reason why they were going to leave. And I think with this as well, people are expecting this to be a great deal of damage to the government. I don't necessarily think it'll have the impact that people are expecting.
Well, let's see. You know what? Here you've got Ibidu1 saying, why are you Christians so hateful to Muslims? Well, the Muslims love, honor, accept Jesus. PB. No, Muslims insult, demote, and deny the divinity of Jesus. They deny his sonship. They deny that he is God. So, in fact, you insult Jesus. You have a different character. In fact, you don't have the Christian Jesus. You have a guy called Isa, whoever that is, who is not the Christian Jesus. And also, please give me the verse in the Quran that teaches Muslims to love their enemies and to love Christians and non-Muslims. Please let me see where that is. Christians are instructed to love their neighbors and to love their enemies. Of course, we must speak the truth. And of course, the truth can be divisive. The truth about Islam is unfortunately very, very ugly. And since we're on the topic of Epstein, and I want to show this. These are the Epstein files. This is the Epstein library from the US Department of Justice. I'm just going to go through because Muslims continuously go on and talk about how there are no Muslims in the Epstein files. I still see this. This is from Abdullah Al-Mari to Daphne Wallace. Now, she was working with Epstein, and there's a few of these files I'll mention. I just typed in the word Kaaba. I typed the word Kaaba into the Epstein files. Let's have a look. The three pieces in the next pages are from inside and outside the Kaaba. Okay, this one says we are going to ship Mr. Epstein 3 pieces of the Kaaba for his mosque.
I've seen this. I've seen that they did ship material from the actual.
We will ship some pieces of the Kaaba. They're sending this to Jeffrey Epstein for his little temple on his island, and they're calling it his mosque. That is fascinating. Let's have a look. It says here, as per instruction, we will ship some pieces of the Kaaba for the mosque. These are the pieces you'll be receiving. Let's have a look. As per instruction, we will ship these pieces for the mosque. Some pieces of the Kaaba for the mosque. Let's have a look here. The 3 pieces are from inside and outside the Kaaba. The best photos are just the below photos that illustrate where these pieces are from. The exterior of the Kaaba, the interior. Why are Muslims in Saudi Arabia sending Mr. Epstein pieces of the Kaaba, the holiest place and relic in Islam, for his mosque? Thunderous, do you want to maybe hazard a guess here?
Well, the thing for me on this is this not some kind of form of shirk?
I have no idea. What do you think? I mean, only 3 pieces, not the whole Kaaba?
Well, it doesn't matter how many pieces, but to treat it in the way that they're doing is kind of giving it some kind of veneration, maybe beyond what Islam says. It's not idolatry. For me, this personally feels like, at what point is this not some kind of idolatry and therefore shirk? It's shirk anyway. We all know it's shirk anyway, but this kind of adds to the narrative of shirk.
But why are Muslim authorities sending Mr. Jeffrey Epstein pieces of the Kaaba?
It would be to satisfy the Muslim people, so to say, that are invited to the island. So whilst they're there fondling children and doing what they want with children, as their religious texts give them permission to, they can go off to also pray in there. Probably one of the mosques that Epstein has built there for them so that they can pray whilst they're staying at the island. That's what I genuinely believe. And whilst doing so, they can think, we got a piece of Mecca here too. So
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be just to facilitate them.
Yeah, Jesus is not Isa, and and also no peace be upon him needed for Jesus. He's not dead, whereas Muhammad is dead. We know Muhammad died. And here's an odd thing. Right? Muhammad is known to have sinned in the Quran. Muhammad is known to have done things which were displeasing, and he had to be forgiven for his sins. Jesus and his mother are regarded in the Islamic narrative in the Quran as sinless. Why don't they venerate Jesus, who is sinless, but rather take this sinful man called Muhammad and use him as the perfect example? Isn't it strange that the perfect example is not the sinless Jesus, in the Islamic narrative at least, and his mother, but no, it's the sinful Muhammad? Very, very strange, very backwards and upside down.
But if you look at... Go on, David.
It's very inverse, isn't it, really, when you consider that Muhammad is not called a Messiah, but Jesus is. Muhammad wasn't born of a virgin. His parents died when he was very young, but Jesus was born of a virgin. Jesus was given works, powerful works, that clearly were a testimony that he was an agent of God, whereas Muhammad wasn't given any powerful works. Jesus was prophesied, Muhammad wasn't prophesied. Time is based on Jesus, nothing is based on Muhammad. So, if you're going to do a man-to-man comparison, Muhammad's not even competition. When you consider the verified secular sources that testify that Jesus existed and was executed, in comparison to a man that came 540 years later, where history is scant on evidences, that should be evidence in itself, because all you've got at best is circular reasoning. Muhammad is a god because the Quran says so. The Quran is from God because Muhammad says so.
Yeah, not only that, let's use common sense here as well, that through the eyes or worldview, including, through the law of Islam, Jesus committed shirk. So they, under their own law, they would have executed him by now, even in today's world. So if they love him that much, then they really need to look at what Jesus said in the gospel and what he has actually, preached to the disciples through the gospels of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, and you will see that he's committed shirk. So they can't love him that much.
Yeah, maybe Muslims can point us at the Injil that they claim as the true story. If we can get a copy of that Injil, would be great. Thank you.
The testimony of 1400 years as to the impact of Christianity on social culture and laws around the world, and in comparison to Muslim countries that have had 1400 years to establish the Sharia, and all you ever see is Islamic countries being a countries that produce nothing. They're always at the bottom of any ratings as far as education, healthcare, and human rights are concerned, in comparison to Christian countries. So the legacy of Islam and the tidal wave of Muslims moving to secular lands where Christianity has been established speaks volumes in itself.
Of course, it does. And whilst we're on the topic of Islam, quickly, I just wanted to say something, because this is a massive topic that's going on in the UK, and this ties in with the title of, what we're talking about on this show. Now, Islam is a massive problem here in the UK, and what really does wind me up more than anything is when even GB News or Talk TV or the likes of Nigel Farage or people who pretend to be on our side, when they talk about Islam, they'll talk about the grooming gangs. They'll say it's a cultural problem. It's a geographical cultural problem. They'll say it's a migrant problem. It's not any of those things. The whole thing, you have to look at the root. If you're going to kill a toxic plant, you need to take out the root. Otherwise, if you don't, it will keep growing back. And the root of it all stems from Islam. It is stuck in the 7th century. It will never change. It doesn't want reformation, doesn't seek enlightenment. And until we are brave enough to actually say this religion, this ideology needs to be prohibited, outlawed completely, we are never going to get anywhere in the West with this ideology, no matter what. And until people wake up and face that truth, we're going to keep going around in circles. More blood will be shed, more screams will be screamed out. and they will echo off the walls that our forefathers and ancestors built. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth.
Yeah, Islam is very much like Japanese knotweed.
Yeah, there's no radical or moderate part. There is just Islam. And if you look at the life of Muhammad and his companions, the most perfect Muslims, then you will see for yourself that this is not an ideology that fits in with Western democratic values. It doesn't belong here, and it's never going to change.
We're seeing
I
it.
noticed that the one of the comments in there, I think it was actually removed by one of the moderators, where the comment was by the guy trying to create some kind of equality between Muhammad and Jesus.
Yeah,
And
this
I
one,
just
yeah.
find that absolutely absurd. I mean, Muhammad killed his critics. Jesus' critics killed him. You know, the legacy. I mean, when Jesus died, all the apostles and the disciples, they died for their faith. They were murdered for their faith, and they went spreading the message of Christianity and peace. Whereas Muhammad, as soon as he died, what was the first thing that took place? It was the Ridda Wars, the wars of apostasy. You know, how many the apostles weren't killing each other after Jesus' death, but how many caliphates died or were murdered by their own people? After you know,
At least
how many
two immediately after. Now he says Jesus is considered equal level with Muhammad. Yeah, sure. We're supposed to believe this. It's amazing how Muslims don't realize we've actually read your books. We've actually read the Quran, the Hadith.
And
We've
extra.
studied this stuff. We know it better than you do right now. You know, I mean, look how Sheikh Uthman ran from God Logic recently.
Yep.
You know, I mean, because they know that we know their material better than they do. How many Muslims have sat with me to defend the Sharia? Like zero, right? So, yeah, but you Christians transgressed Jesus' message and began. These Muslims come 700 years after Jesus, 600 years after Jesus, and then when they explain the Bible to us, they claim to have the Injil, but they don't have a copy of it to show us. They don't have Muhammad's Quran. They don't have Uthman's Quran. They don't have any early Qurans. It's like, this is crazy. So here they go around making up stories they can't prove, and they can't even prove that Mecca existed in the 7th century. They don't even have evidence for their own claims.
Well, and a sheep ate a piece of God's words as well. Don't forget, under Aisha's pillow.
The comment from the comment from the guy was that you know, Christians transgress Jesus' message, but then you claim the Bible is corrupted. Then you say that it was corrupted as it was being written. Then you say that there was a copy of this magical book called the Injil. You're challenging the message that you're saying that Christians transgress, but you don't even know what the message is. And when the message is put forward to you, when you start quoting parts of the gospel that you say weren't inspired, according to, you don't even know who these people are, but yet you still quote that book to validate your own prophet. But when those texts are used to challenge your prophet, then it's back to being corrupted again. I mean, you know, they can't even be consistent with their own line of reasoning.
The reason for that is, though, and we have to take this into account, Muslims are not allowed to criticize Islam, for a start. If they did, you know, the whole family will come down on them, the whole community would come down on them, and they cannot leave. If the apostate, you know, the punishment for apostasy is death. So even if they wanted to, and even if they knew the truth in their minds, they're not going to say anything with their mouths, because if they did, they're just going to face persecution from their own loved ones, their own community, their imams, so on and so forth. So even if in the back of their mind they are, you know, doubting just that little bit, which I bet the majority of them do, they all know that they can't say anything anyway, so they won't. They never will. So they'll just back Muhammad. They'll back Islam as much as they can to look good in the eyes of Islam and their community.
Yeah. So to mention, this guy says, the Badger, look at you cute lot pretending moral high ground. You murdered religion in your countries. Everything God has forbidden, you have allowed. What does Deuteronomy 14:8 say? You don't even know your Bible. Well, first of all, Deuteronomy is the Old Testament. Muslims don't know the Bible because Christians are not bound by the Old Testament. We have a New Testament for a reason, right?
It's an agreement. It means
and then
agreement.
on top of that, let's have a look at, besides Muslims and the Saudi authorities obviously shipping pieces of the Kaaba to Jeffrey Epstein, because they obviously think that, you know, for Jeffrey Epstein's mosque, according to the official documents from Epstein's files. They're sending it for Epstein's mosque, meaning Epstein was a Muslim. Looks like it. But let's have a look at Muhammad. So also, I asked our friend earlier, please show me where in the Quran it says that Muslims must love their enemies and love the Christians, or anyone else for that matter. And of course, he didn't show me that because it doesn't exist, because you consider us as enemies and you have to hate us. Let's have a look. Muhammad's 6-year-old wife scraped semen off his clothes with her fingernails. Narrated Aisha, I used to wash the traces of semen from the clothes of the Prophet, and he went for prayers while traces of water were still on it. That is in Sahih Bukhari, right? Let's have a look here. Narrated Aisha, right? I asked Aisha about the clothes soiled with semen, and she replied, I used to wash it off the clothes of Allah's messenger, and he would go for prayer with that clothes with the water spots on it. I heard Sulaiman bin Yasar talking about the clothes that Muhammad soiled with semen. Aisha had said, I used to wash it off. Why is Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, coming on his own clothing?
Was it his cum? Was it his cum?
Yeah,
that's the thing. Or it could be the people from the Al-Zut people.
Exactly. Was it the Al-Zut coming all over Muhammad's clothes? So don't talk to us about moral high ground. I think you guys have taken the moral low ground here.
He's quoted Deuteronomy 14 verse 8. And Deuteronomy 14:8 is that default position that Muslims use about eating swine or eating pig. Yet Deuteronomy 14 verse 7 talks about you can't eat camel as well. The irony being, Muslims eat camel. Not only do Muslims eat camel, they also drink camel urine. There was a case in Saudi Arabia about 10 years ago where there was a shop in Saudi Arabia selling camel urine. The shop owner got arrested because he was urinating into bottles and selling his own urine to the customers. This is an actual fact. So if you want to take the moral high ground, I would sooner eat swine than I would drink camel urine as prescribed by your prophet, and has been endorsed by Asim al-Hakim, who claimed that the properties of camel urine actually have good effects on people's stomach. It helped his friend get cured from stomach cancer. Okay. However, camel urine has actually been linked with MERS, which is Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. I would sooner eat swine than drink camel urine, but then again, there's something else. If you want to take the moral high ground, please come on the channel. Let us discuss the 54-year-old prophet having sexual intimacy with a 9-year-old girl. If you want to take the moral high ground, let's have it.
And his auntie in the grave to lessen the sins. And then there is more as well, and it's not just the camel urine neither. There's that verse as well where there was menstrual clothing and pieces, dead animals in water, and the companions asked him, they can't drink from this well because it was dirty, because it had menstrual cloth in there and dead animals. And Muhammad said, water cannot be made dirty, so you can drink from it. So if you again, moral high ground.
Yeah, just so we know, Saudi authorities did arrest a Pakistani man. It's not the only one for selling his own urine as camel urine. So people were buying it, and then on top of that, Muslims eat camels. Yes, I lived in the Middle East for 11 years. I worked all across the Middle East. I traveled extensively, and yes, they do eat camels for sure. And then, can someone make up the final facts? Was Epstein Mossad and Abdul? Well, I mean, look, why is he being shipped pieces of the Kaaba for his mosque, as is written in the emails, right? That's an interesting question. Let me just go here to this. Hold on. He says there's one thing he says where he says there's one thing where Epstein says. Hold on. I think he says, I don't like Mossad. He actually does say, well, I don't like Israel. I think he says at one point in the files here, I don't like Israel. And he says, at all. It's in there somewhere. He actually says he hates Israel. Right? Epstein actually says that. But, I mean, yeah. So.
I think that pretty much answers that question, doesn't it?
Yeah, pork is actually in Poland, here where I live. Pork is actually the default meat that you buy. Yeah. So, pork is very popular here. And everyone thinks the Polish are based. Everyone thinks the Polish are awesome. But people should realize that the Poles obviously haven't allowed any immigration. They haven't allowed any of these illegals. They haven't allowed any Islam. And everyone goes, the Polish are awesome. The Polish are amazing. The Polish are also Catholic. So yeah, and they love their pork. So yeah. So where were we? So yeah, there was a few things that you sent me to talk about, Thunderous, before we get to what's happening in the UK today. But looks like it's becoming important to take former jihadis, guys who were arrested for jihad bomb plots, and make them councillors in the local elections.
Yep. Yeah, this has become a normal thing. We're seeing a lot of jihadists standing for MPs in their local areas that are heavily influenced with the Muslim households. And of course, we know that they're told by their imams who to vote for as a family or as a block vote, which again is concerning, because if you can get Labour in with a 22% turnout or whatever it was that actually voted, then just imagine what you could do with a population when if say the Muslim population had a political party and they're demographically 25% of the nation, with the divide that we have right now, they could easily take power and get a party in easily. So
yeah, they're voting along religious lines, they're voting along clan lines, they're voting along family lines, and they're starting to form their own political blocks. I mean, we've seen numerous videos where they said, look, we need to stop being used. We need to form our own political parties, and we need to make ourselves seen and felt politically.
I think it's quite an insidious move, because they've obviously looked at things legally as to whether they can get somebody elected with his particular background and history. So they've looked at things legally from the perspective of his convictions and such were all abroad, not in the United States, not in the United Kingdom. So that gives him legitimacy in this country. As you say, he's gone to a particularly dense Muslim area in order to get the vote as well. So that precedence will be seen if he gets elected, that other areas like Luton, Leicester, Bradford, Rochdale, all the other areas will follow suit. So now, this for me, yet again, and I repeat myself from so many previous shows, goes into the work that Lloyd's done with reference to financial backing from Arab oil money abroad in order to establish a strong foot or stronghold within Islam. So you're seeing the manifestation of it now in a more open. This is what I'm saying. It's becoming more barefaced. This is what you're seeing now.
I mean, they banned her. Sorry, go on, please.
I was about to say, and effectively, what we're seeing is the memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood being played out as they planned.
Yeah. I mean, Eva Vlaardingenbroek, they've barred her from entering the UK in the public interest. Of course, they won't release the documents that say why they bought her. It's in the public interest, so then of course it should be public reasons, but it's all secret. But of course, a jihadi who's committed crimes and who was convicted on terrorism charges, they've just basically said, okay, look, it's fine now. You can plot to blow people up, and we'll give you a reward for it. But she's committed no crime, and they won't let her into the country.
So she spoke at a Tommy Robinson rally on September the 13th on stage, and she wasn't even planning to come to the UK, but she had a visa anyway, and they revoked it and they sent her an email. I seen a video she did with, I think it was Tucker. What's his name? Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson.
And and she was explaining what had happened, and that she had literally had no plans of coming to the UK whatsoever. And out of nowhere, this email just popped up saying, we are taking away your visa, but not only that, you will not be allowed to enter or apply for another one. And they gave no reason for it, but the only reason that she could think of was that the last time she was in the United Kingdom, she stood on Tommy Robinson's stage and gave a speech.
Crazy.
And yet the left that are looking to, or the people or the party that are looking to block her entrance into the country, they're very much the same people who are looking to try some kind of legal loophole to get Shamina Begum back into the country and established as a British citizen again.
And we had that other guy come as well, didn't we? What was his name?
Oh, the Egyptian guy.
Yeah. He was okay to come in. Keir Starmer didn't mind that, but yeah, they fought tooth and nail to get him back from Egypt. But yeah, with this Dutch Catholic, no, you said you're friends with Tommy. Well, you spoke on his stage. We can't have that. You're gone.
Yeah, you know what Tommy said a couple of days ago? He said that all of these Muslims that are coming in on the boats and the dinghies, many of them are actually members of Islamic terror groups, members of the Muslim Brotherhood, from different groups that are all affiliate with the Muslim Brotherhood. And much of the crime, much of the disruption, much of the issues that they're causing is part of a deliberate disruption campaign. It's basically stochastic warfare, creating chaos, right? Creating disruption, creating media confusion, and so on and so on. So these people are actually coming in and deliberately causing issues. I mean, you're bleeding your economy dry, you're stealing jobs, you are also bleeding the capacity of your NHS, because you can't get a medical appointment because they've got to the front of the queue. So they are doing various things that are affecting on a wartime. In a sense, it's a war strategy that's not kinetic, but it is in many ways economically, socially, culturally, undermining your culture, attacking your culture, and they are doing it as part of a strategy to destroy the UK.
I think it's to destroy. I think that what will happen is, in my estimation, from what I've been seeing over the past few years, is that so this has all been a deliberate strategy endgame. It's pushing people to what people say is the far right. When all you're doing, or most people are doing, is just vocalizing an opinion about the injustice that they're seeing. Now, one of the things that came out in the news last week in the media, and I don't know if you know about this, Rowan, maybe you can add a little bit more to it, was that the government's going to allot £500,000 or $500 million pounds for housing, to build new houses. And one of the first people that they're putting at the top of the list there for these new houses are the migrants, the immigrants that have come in. And they're saying that they'll be able to have these houses, but as soon as they get citizenship, then, because it's only a temporary arrangement, and then they'll have to find somewhere else to live. Well, that's kind of absurd, because if you put them in a house and then they get citizenship, so that's already telling you already that they're going to get citizenship. Yep. It's not if they get citizenship, because many of them don't justify it anyway. But if they get citizenship, well, they say if, but we know it's a case of when. Where are you going to move them to? Because if they can't, if the housing is only, they're going to get a brand new house, you're going to put them in a brand new house. They'll obviously have to have all the furnishings and decorations and things as well. So there's a lot more than the house going into the situation. Then what's going to happen is they get their citizenship. What do you do next? Where are they going to go after that if you're going to unhouse them? That's obviously not what's going to happen. So this is an end game strategy, and all that's going to do is infuriate the indigenous even more so. And I think that's exactly the end game that they want. They're almost pushing people to go into a certain direction or to react in a certain way, because that is just like another slap in the face of people who have been on the housing list in this country for like a decade, for 10 years, and they still are no further down the queue than when they first signed up to get social accommodation.
Yeah, and not only that, going on the back of what Lloyd said about where they were, you know, these guys that are coming over here and they're causing chaos. Well, our government have decided to not only do the security and do the hotel staff tell these migrants not to talk to us or to integrate and assimilate, they persuade them not to talk to absolutely anyone in the public. They are now giving them self-defense lessons just in case they interact with us. But not only this, going to your point, which you've just made, Thunderous, about what they are going to do with these migrants, well, they have all actually got a blueprint already, which I spoke of a year or two ago in my group that I've got locally, where I said, here in rural areas in the countryside of Britain, we are going to see multiculturalism forced on areas that are predominantly majority white. And little areas like where I live, where it's nice and cozy, you've got award-winning towns, they win floral competitions. You never see a police car or anyone getting arrested, for heaven's sake. You can leave your car running outside a shop. No one will ever take it. Yet, the Labour's new plans now are to make it more diverse because it's too white for whatever reason. So they're going to force these illegal immigrants now into the only places that are left that represent the British identity and culture, and the only places where people look and go to retire. There's going to be nowhere left to go. Every single town, village, you name it, is going to look like London and a third world shithole, in effect.
Man, and not only that, in many parts of the UK, they want to ban dogs because Muslims don't like dogs, right? You don't want to, somebody think of the Muslims. Please don't offend them with dogs. Like, hello.
This for me is a lot more serious than it looks. This for me is actually leading to something a lot more heavier, because when you start imposing your cultural or religious identity on another area so as to gain a superiority, you start off with the little things, and then what you do is then you add it, you escalate it, you increase it, you further it. So you start off with weak things like dogs, and then they'll use I forget the woman's name. She appears on GB News. She used to be a Labour spokesperson. I forget what her name was, and she was saying, well, she made the comments that, well, trying to downplay and say, well, it's the owners not looking after the dogs because dogs can be unruly, so almost trying to it's not a Muslim thing. It's actually a dog owner issue. Whereas we've had situations in this country where a dog can probably behave in the manner that it shouldn't. That's not down to the dog, that's down to the owner, and by all means that can happen. That takes place. But that normally takes place in areas like towns and cities. It doesn't take place in rural areas. People in rural areas tend to have a sense of certain sensibilities and discipline. And there's more of an English cultural heritage in those local areas because they haven't been diluted. And yet you can see an end game strategy, because when you look at the demographic of the country, I would say the country's got to be about 75-80% white in the first place. So when you go to a country or when you go to a town or a city or a location, you're going to see a reflection of the demographic of the majority of the country in that town anyway. It's as absurd as when Hamza Yusuf in Scotland was making the comment of blah 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 white, blah 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 white, blah 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 white, and we're seeing a reflection of that Muslims commentary in Scotland now being manifest in rural England in order to strip away its identity. And the irony in all of this is, I don't think Muslims want to go to village areas and live there anyway.
No, because there's no local areas like where I live. There's no infrastructure like mosques here already. However, there is plans for one to be built locally. This is where they're looking now. So old churches where the fall of Christianity, although it is resurging back now, and I will be careful with what I'm saying to this, but where there are a lot of churches that are failing. So you can see now there's people like Mohammed Hijab and speakers that are setting up funding accounts where you can, pay your what do you call it, the charity zakat, and help build a masjid, and Allah will give you a bigger one in Jannah, and they're literally buying every property they possibly can cheap, and churches are cheap, relatively cheap nowadays, and they are turning them into mosques or Islamic centers for learning. In fact, there's many churches that share it.
David King says here, England Rothschild owned. I mean, these are low IQ comments, right? This is so retarded. I mean, it's not a guy called Rothschild that is raping hundreds of thousands of British Gauls, forcibly marrying them, shipping them out of the country, torturing them, literally lining them up with 30, 40, 100 men a day, as is now coming out in Rupert Lowe's inquiry. It's not a guy called Rothschild that invaded These were Muslims doing it. These are Pakistani Muslim Brotherhood operatives doing it. It's so easy to go, oh yeah, the Israelis had themselves murdered because it suited the Rothschilds' agenda to get sympathy for themselves so they could take over the world. That is retarded. You have to be retarded to say stupid things like that. To go, England is owned by the Rothschilds. You've read too many conspiracy theory books that have no sense. You've listened to too many people. When a Muslim rapes your daughter, are you going to go, I'm going to blame the Jews for that? When 30 Muslim men rape your daughter, are you going to go, yeah, the Jews did that? No, 30 Muslim men did it. 50 Muslim men did it. So you need to get your head out of your butt. Seriously. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of that currently going on, isn't there? The anti-Semitism now is growing even higher. But that's, again, it's a problem of Islam. This is why it's not just the grooming, it's not just the terrorism.
It's not grooming, it's mass rape and torture.
It's everything. You just need the whole thing literally outlawed. And yes, it might hurt a few people's feelings. You might have a few people that are nice, that are Muslim. I'm not saying there isn't, because there are. However, we need to think about benefiting our own country and the safety of our children and in the future. Otherwise, we've got blood on our own hands. If we don't have the courage to stand up against this ideology and outlaw it, then we effectively are part of the problem. We're allowing this to happen.
I think with the problem with people as well, and it's more common than what people realize, is that people can't seem to differentiate the difference between a Muslim and what the Islamic texts are. They don't realize that the issue is the Islamic text and those who are educated to the point of to understand what it actually means. So what you're saying there is bang on point, Ron. It's not Muslims per se. It's Islam that's the problem. But people tend to think that when you use the word Islam, you're really referring to the people and not the ideology. So that's where the politics get thrown in.
Islam, the ideology, is completely separate to Muslims as human beings. And I always make that clear, and I should have made it clear earlier. But yeah, this is what I'm saying. The ideology of Islam, it simply has to be prohibited. And I believe if the United Kingdom was to prohibit Islam from being practiced, preached, or whatever, and they marked it down as some kind of, organization which is illegal, then other countries in Europe would follow. They would follow suit. But I honestly don't see anyone doing it.
I think the problem, and I've said this to Lloyd many times over the years, the vacuum was created post-World War I after Charles Darwin, Francis Lyle, and Francis Galton. Charles Darwin, Charles Lyle, and Francis Galton. Those three men contributed to the change in the culture of this country. Their influences with Darwinian evolution and atheism created a vacuum in this country, which is where we got which is where England is now. This spirit, there is no spirit, there's no social cohesion anymore, because Christianity, objectively speaking, is what people, if you, this couldn't happen in the 60s because people were still culturally, the community was still held together by Christianity to a greater or lesser degree. The education system with Darwinian evolution and the impact of atheism has what's created this vacuum, and this vacuum has allowed Islam to come in and replace it with this ideology. That's what's happened. And the atheism has actually divided people, not united people. And it's no surprise now that you're finding people who are once vocal atheists now coming out and into a greater or lesser degree accepting Christianity. Hirsi the Somalian, I always forget her name, Ali. She is now accepted as a Christianity. The apostate prophet identifies as a Christian. And Dawkins himself comes out as a cultural Christian, because there's a reflection now that atheism and Darwinian evolution haven't come up with any answers, or hasn't improved society in the slightest.
No, if anything, it's harmed it.
A couple of things. I mean, lately I've had a lot of trolls on the channel. I mean, this is normal. So look, just for the trolls again, these Muslim trolls, just so you know, let's just actually go here.
I've
I
seen.
just want to make sure that you guys, as Muslims, you all know that the Kaaba is in the Epstein files. Muslims are in the Epstein files. And it says here that Muslims are shipping Mr. Jeffrey Epstein pieces of the Kaaba for Jeffrey Epstein's mosque. So
Who knows? They might all flee there now once a year and do their pilgrimage.
But the thing is, it's a stupid line of reasoning anyway. Let's pretend for a moment there are no Muslims in the Epstein file. What does that actually prove? What does that prove? Does that mean that Islam has a moral high ground because there's no Muslim named in the Epstein file? Excuse me, look at all the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs that have been taking place in this country for decades. Yep. What about your own prophet? What about countries that are Islamically controlled that allow 9-year-old girls to get married? What about female genital mutilation? 24 clinics on the NHS in this country. What about honor killings? What about acid, oil, and boiling water attacks on women? Yeah. What about forced marriages? What about consanguineous marriages? What about kidnapping your own daughters and taking them to countries to marry off to people that they don't even know? Where's your moral high ground then?
Yeah. Or stoning your own daughter till they're unalived. Yeah.
And also Justin Duplessis is correct. I mean, the UK is owned by Qatar, right? You've got Saudi and Qatari money. They clearly are running the UK. There's clearly something very wrong. The UK is being infiltrated by Muslims in the government. You've got what, 97 Muslim mayors? What, 18 Muslim cities are run by Muslim mayors? And now, what's this one guy that, I mean, you've got two choices for this one mayor that is this guy. This guy is a former jihadi terrorist, and he's running against a Pakistani that can't speak English. So you have a choice between a Pakistani mayor that can't speak any English whatsoever and a former jihadi that tried to murder people for Islam.
Or potentially Sharon Osbourne. I'll just give a quick shout out to Justin. He's a good friend of mine. He's a fellow patriot that I do I attend events with. So yeah, Justin.
No, I mean, these Muslims are shameless. They, you know, something also recently, someone mentioned the Rothschilds. You know what? The Rothschild legend comes from the 1700s when Rothschild was very, very rich. I did some years ago. Thunderous, do you remember we did a show, it was probably 3-4 years ago. We did a talk on the Rothschilds. We looked at their actual financial situation today because he had a lot of descendants and his land was divided. And I think the richest Rothschild is like way down the list these days because he was the richest man in the world like 280 years ago, right? Today, the man is like, they don't even feature, I think, in the top 1,000 richest people in the world. Yeah. They're so poor now. They're so poor because of mismanagement, of having multiple families being sued, and having to divide the money across hundreds of ancestors and descendants and whatnot. So the Rothschilds aren't even as nearly as influential and wealthy, but people love to trade on that, and then they want to ignore the fact that Qatar and Saudi are heavily influential worldwide, exporting rape gangs, exporting terror, exporting infiltration all over. It's just, yeah. But
I'm funding educational facilities. Universities are, they are predominantly funded by Qatar, Doha. There's a lot of money from Doha that goes into universities in the West. And again, this comes from the memorandum planned by the Muslim Brotherhood, which is in America. And they've got all the knowledge. This is what upsets me. You see places like Dearborn, Texas, other places as well. Is it Minneapolis? They're all falling. Yet they've got this memorandum which clearly states what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how they're going to infiltrate every sector of the establishment. And yet none of them are saying, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. They're just fall into it. And as solid as Trump is and as based as Trump could be, he is not recognizing that this ideology is a huge, huge problem. It's sadly, I think, and that's just to do with trade, isn't it? Saudi and all that. Otherwise, if he was to be honest,
okay,
we have to keep it at arm's length.
Since you brought this up, I'm going to show this. Since you brought up the Muslim Brotherhood, so for the audience, I've covered this in the past. 2004, a Brotherhood operative called Ismail al-Barasi and his wife were pulled over because a cop observed them filming the struts, the supporting struts of a bridge, right? The Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And the cop thought it was suspicious that they were filming the support struts of the bridge. Now, of course, Albaraz and his wife then suddenly disappeared out of the country. The police raided their home, and then they found a hidden room with 80 boxes of documents. And these were documents belonging to the Muslim Brotherhood, who were then, and of course, the Holy Land Foundation. This was the largest terror funding trial in US history, and they found the Muslim Brotherhood's 1991 strategic plan for its operations in the United States, called the Explanatory Memorandum on the General Strategic Goals of the Group. And they state the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in America is to destroy America. The process of settlement, and this counts for France, Italy, you name it, the UK, the process of settlement is a civilization jihad process with all that the word means. The Brotherhood, now remember, the Muslim Brotherhood is all the Muslims, must understand that their work in America is a grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within, sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the Muslim believers, so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. If we do not have this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is, wherever he lands, until the final hour comes. And there are multiple phases. There are 5 phases for this infiltration. Phase 1, discreet and secret establishment of elite leadership. This phase has already been implemented. Phase 2, remember this is 1991.
Yep.
Phase of gradual appearance on the public scene and exercising and using various public activities. It has greatly succeeded in implementing this stage. It has succeeded in achieving a great deal of its important goals, like infiltrating various sectors of the government, gaining religious institutions, embracing senior scholars, gaining public support and sympathy, and establishing a shadow government, a secret shadow government within the government. Phase 3, utilizing mass media, currently in progress. Phase 4, open public confrontation with the government through political pressure. And then training on the use of weapons domestically and overseas in anticipation of 0 hour. It has noticeable activities in this regard. And then seizing power to establish their Islamic nation, under which all parties and Islamic groups are united.
So they're using our hand of democracy against us. And one imam called this, because this was brought up in a discussion with an imam, where a Muslim started talking about the memorandum and what phase are we at. And he said, it's nearly completed. He said, inshallah, he said, it's nearly completed. And he said, and we're going to use it against them. He said, we've got Muslim parties that are coming to fruition in the United Kingdom. We have our brothers in Germany calling for Sharia law. And he was going on about, and then he come up with this he come up with this phrase called soft jihad. He said, at the moment, we are in the phase of soft jihad. But when the demographic changes and we have enough people and we're in every town and every city of a country, he said, we will have people at checkpoints that will force or convert non-believers to Islam, and if they do not, we will attack them. And they also went on to talk about sleeper cells, and if they went and talked about how they are going to be active and given the nod, which will strike fear in the hearts of the disbelievers and the unbelievers, and how this is all going ahead. And apparently the UK know this, the US know this, and there are already terms of surrender being drafted behind our backs, apparently, just in case, because they're aware of how strong the brotherhood, the ummah, it actually is. This is how these imams are talking to the Muslims right now. And we have no right to be in fear. In fact, they're trying to bring in, through the back door, blasphemy laws. So we daren't even talk about this ideology.
And Muhammad Jihad has been saying we are 50 million Muslims in Europe, we need to organize and take over.
Yeah.
That's
So
because
it's
there's
real.
50 billion, which is more than the number of the police and the army as a collective in Europe.
Yeah,
And you're dealing with an ideology that's, you know, if they die trying to kill you, well, that's part of their code of conduct. It's an honor. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for martyrdom. So that's a level of behavior that you can't reason with. And that's what another danger that people have to accept, that if your enemy is prepared to die to get at you, what can you do about it? Effectively, all you can do is preempt it by doing them first.
And another phrase by Muhammad Hijab, we've heard him say in the past, we love death more than you love life, which tells you everything what we are up against. And if we can't unite on our side and come together and try and sort out these problems that we are facing, the threat and the level of it that we are facing as a nation, then we're doomed. And if you look in America, they have it a little bit better because they have the second constitution, so that they have the right to bear arms. We don't have that here. We're screwed.
Yeah, I want to bring attention to this. You guys may remember this incident of this little girl who she lost her mind, and I think justifiably so, because she said there were kiddie bashers. They had beaten up her friends, they'd hurt her friends, and she was using the weapons to protect herself and her friends. Well, just so you know, this couple that they threatened are now in court on sexual assault and assault charges for having sexually assaulted and assaulted these girls. That's what I've been reading about. So the couple that attacked them, right, are in court on charges for actually assaulting these girls.
You won't see that in the mainstream media.
Yeah, one has to wonder why, right? One has to wonder why, you know.
And then another thing as well,
right? So, but he was threatened by an axe-wielding 12-year-old girl, right? But apparently now things have changed and the story has been changed. So now it turns out that these people were the perpetrators, and and his name is Fatos Ali. Ali is that's a Hindu name, right? Ali is a Hindu name, right, guys? Right? Yeah. So Ali apparently was doing something he shouldn't have been doing with his little wife here, and they were attacking and hurting and damaging these girls. And yeah, so there you go. Just so that I mention that.
Did you notice in that report it says legally from Bulgaria? Why do you think they were saying legally from Bulgaria? You see, everything now, what we're looking at in the media, and when they report these situations, is all very much, everything's hidden in the words, or the lack of words, or the lack of identity now.
Welsh choir boy, Axel Rudicabana.
Yeah. Turns out he's a gangster, and so, and the snap here says, "I'm waiting for you, whore. Get in my car."
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, he legally emigrated. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So things are a little funny about, so look, I mean, the truth comes out. It turns out that, look, the thing is, if the people are not going to be protected by the police, the people are going to protect themselves. And I think this is the way it's heading. People are realizing we're on our own, and you're going to start seeing people taking the law into their own hands. What choice do they have?
Exactly that. One thing as well that I've been talking about a lot recently is the lack of reporting surrounding lockdowns. I'm not talking about lockdown drills. I'm talking about official state lockdowns that have happened within nurseries, primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, and universities across the United Kingdom. Now, I did a Freedom of Information Act across all authorities in the United Kingdom. 18 of them refused to hand over information. These 18 happen to be the most heavily influenced and multicultural areas, by the way, so surprise, surprise. but I managed to work out a median range and had some reports of staff leaving work because of PTSD, kids scrambling through broken glass to get to their parents. And I worked out on average that since the start of the academic year of September to the current day now, here in February, there have been over 1,400 school lockdowns, official school lockdowns, yet no mainstream broadcasting outlet has spoken about it, not one. And all the other small ones that I've managed to get and put in a video have been put in local news, but they're at the very bottom of their websites and they never reach the algorithm. You have to search for them in order to get them. And some of the stories, Lloyd and James, are absolutely shocking of what you see and what has happened. We're talking guns, threats to blow up the schools, absolutely all sorts. It's disgusting. They won't show it.
I can well believe it, because we had that situation in Milton Keynes with Dean Tanger School where there's a migrant hotel a mile away, and they were walking to the school, filming the children in the school. The parents, I think it took them weeks before the police actually finally turned up. And the response from the police was, this is just their culture. That was the official line from the police from a school in Deansang and Milton Keynes, which is very much nearby to where I live. So all that's happening with this is it strengthens the mindset of the Muslim, because from their point of view, because they're so entrenched in their ideology, they see this as some kind of incremental way of Allah blessing them. Okay, this is Allah, and so it fortifies their belief system, that and emboldens them to continue in the manner that they are. Whereas the indigenous of the country, it weakens them, it strengthens them, because the law is seen to be protecting them, whilst persecuting and prosecuting those who have a legitimate legal claim against what they're seeing. And that's and a good example of this was the Epping Hotel situation, where a migrant had raped a girl, and then the police were denied it, but then were found to be complicit in driving in, shipping in, bringing in leftist woke protesters against the parents and the residents of the Epping Hotel. They denied it until footage came out of these protesters were being shipped in by the police. When your police are working against you, when the police are working against you, which means the government is working against you, where else do you have to go?
Yeah,
exactly.
You have nowhere to go. And I did say 1,400. I was referring to someone in the chat.
Yeah,
1,400.
I don't think we know the half, not even a quarter of what's really taking place, because it's not so much the media won't pick it up. I challenge the integrity of the media system and platforms and such, that where they shadow ban information that does go out of certain things that are taking place in certain locations. And also the fear as well of people in those locations, that if they do see anything, how will they as a human being be perceived in that local area from the government and the police?
And like I said, and that was without they're the ones that I've figured out by a median range from the authorities that did actually give the information back. I put a video together, uploaded the video. Of course, it didn't hit the algorithms. It didn't get any. It had about 24 views, and but with the 18 authorities that refused to give me the information, these are big areas where more lockdowns have happened and everyone knows about. So they were the key ones I wanted as well. They were at the top of my list. So, and I thought if I was to get the information from those authorities, that the video would be a lot better. And of course, they refused to give it because they know that it's too damaging for them. If they were to have that information released into the public, it's just like the Labour government will not put out or release any information regarding crime, and that is tied with migrants. They won't give any statistics, because if they did, there would be uproar within the British public, and rightly